Hey everybody, I'm Ray Waddell, president of OVG Media and Conferences, which oversees Pollstar magazine and Venues Now, and the various media platforms within that. And welcome to the latest edition of Pollstar Live One-on-One. I'm here with a true legend of our industry, Nederlander concert CEO Alex Hodges. And Alex has been one of the true leaders of our industry, actually from its very formation, as a modern contemporary music live business. So he's worked with artists ranging from the great Otis Redding to Allman Brothers Band, Leonard Skinner, and the Police, as well as when I met Alex first was when he was the manager of the late great Stevie Ray Vaughan. So welcome today with us, Alex. Good to see you.
Well, Ray, thank you very much. I appreciate being on and sharing this. I guess my life's been a roller coaster, and I think the whole world and all of us in the music industry are experiencing a wild ride right now.
Well, it's been a wild ride for you from the beginning, and I'd love to hear about how you got started. I understand you were a Georgia native, right?
Well, I grew up in Decatur, Georgia. That's right outside Atlanta. And when it was time to go to college, I had my own musical tastes that were not necessarily older brothers or family taste, and a lot of R&B songs were really popular in my group. Anyway, I went to Mercer University, right in the middle of Georgia in Macon, and there I butted up with a young man 1 year older than I was, Phil Walden, and Phil had a dream of having an agency and management company and extended even maybe a recording studio one day. And so I had learned to type at the suggestion of an aunt. And Phil had gone to the library and written down the addresses of colleges and fraternities and entertainment committees all over the South, and had this idea of writing letters and sending to them. And then he had just decided to take a small office over WIBB radio in Macon. And the only problem with writing letters to the schools to pitch bands was Phil couldn't type. And so he couldn't afford, like a real, somebody to type. But we were buddies, and so at a modest dollar, he asked me to come after classes and type. And of course, you meet some of the musicians, and we would send out letters. We had one phone number. Graduated to two. He had some old military desks he got real cheap, a couple of them. I took the door and stained them and varnished them and made executive desks. And, it was one of those where the phone would ring and you'd say hello in one voice. Say, I'll see if he's here. And you would count to 10 and change your voice and say, hello, can I help you? And that was where it started. But these young musicians wanted to play, like today, garage bands, whatever. Wanted to play, they could play, they were, honing their skills. Some wanted to write. And the writer that I recall from those early days in the early 60s in Macon, Georgia, was Otis Redding. He could write songs and sing, and he had a great charisma. He could lead other band members, and he was just an amazing guy. We happened to be the same age, and we were all pretty young at the time, and people don't realize he died when he was age 26 and left us all those great songs.
Amazing, and what a dynamic artist and performer. And you had your first big success. I mean, Dock of the Bay, what a huge hit that was, along with some other ones.
Well, we had a lot of number one R&B hits, and we'd hit the charts, the pop charts some as well. And Otis was voting number one male singer by Melody Maker in London. So he had a lot of consecutive hits, but nothing like Dock of the Bay. And I read an article where Steve Copper remembers Otis calling in and saying, "I've got a hit," and he played the song to me with and without the whistling, and it was just amazing. Otis never got to hear it on the radio though.
Amazing, man. And what kind of performer? I get in the music geek in me comes out, but what kind of performer was Otis live?
Well, Otis would acknowledge that he wasn't a dancer like James Brown would say, and he didn't have quite the electric moves on the stage that Sam and Dave had. And we didn't represent James Brown, but he was, also from Georgia. So anyway, we represented Sam and Dave, and a lot of the shows Otis would close after Sam and Dave just knocked the audience out. Unbelievable how electric that they were. And Otis stand on stage said, "I don't know how I can follow that, but I'll tell you how dynamic Otis was. When he walked on the stage and reached for the microphone, putting his hands around the mic, and he would hold the mic like this. It was before he signed. It was as if nothing had happened before him. He was that dynamic, and then he had song after song, and he knew how to engage his audience and hit the set list and so forth. And it wasn't automated; it was spontaneous. He and his band, Barquets, and sometimes with Booker T and the MGs, and local musicians that he had at different segments of his career. When Otis did, "Been Loving You Too Long to Stop Now," or "These Arms Are Mine," or "Pain in My Heart," pretty just amazing. Just one of those great things. If you got to see him, just great. And what you can see on video is just not as telling, but it's pretty darn good. So I'd recommend anybody to seek it out and look on YouTube, etc.
There's some good stuff out there. And during those days, you had the first, or one of the very first, contemporary music agencies that did things in a kind of a modern way with Paragon, which ended up riding the wave of Southern rock that exploded back then with bands like the Allman Brothers and later Leonard Skinner and all these acts that were on Capricorn, like Marshall Tucker Band. You guys booked all of them, didn't you?
Well, something happened with me emotionally in the roller coasters. After Otis died, I stayed on with the agency, and we were riding a really good wave of rhythm and blues music with Percy Sledge and Clarence Carter and Sam and Dave. But I felt it was time for me to take a break, even though I'd had 2 years in the service, came back and worked with Otis and Phil and Alan Walden, and then took a break. But Phil would come to Atlanta, and we'd have lunch on a Saturday afternoon. He gave me an album that wasn't released yet, and said, "Take it home, listen to it, and then meet me. We'll go see the band." And it was unreleased, the Allman Brothers Band. And I decided to resign a good job and go back to Macon, which I did in May. And they had just released it, and they were trying to kick off the Allman Brothers stuff. But we had a philosophy, Phil did. It wasn't like, you have two schools of thought, I think, with a band, sometimes on the financial end and career end. And we recognized that it was important to reach out to new markets all the time. And that if you can make, $10,000 in one market, but only $2,000 in another, you may want to get that, stretch it out and figure a way to create different prices at different times in different markets and different places. And I carried that philosophy all the way through Stevie Ray Vaughan's life, that we would play major markets and get a handsome fund. They paid quite well. Sometimes we do arenas and sometimes theaters, and then we would play secondary markets. And the criteria of what we took out on the road, the number of trucks, would change. And in my years of representing the Charlie Daniels Band and the Allman Brothers Band and Leonard Skinner, It was, yes, money was important, but career building aspect was more important.
You know, there were some great agents back there that stayed in the business a while. I know Buck Williams was down there, and John Huey. What about that team that was at Paragon?
Well, you would think a town of 90,000 people and a couple of colleges would hardly be recognized as a mecca of music and recruitment of great personnel, but truly that's what happened. And I don't think you could recreate it with money today. Somebody's going to recreate it, or has, in different cities over the years, just with great vision and big heart. But Terry Rhodes is still in the business, and he worked for me. Rogers Redding, Otis's younger brother, he still booked bands, and he stayed on. And when we reformed and formed Paragon Agency, he became the vice president. And then Buck Williams was on the road and wanted to get off the road, and he came in as an agent as we grew and picked up more bands. And part of my quest was starting with some bands that R&B roster that we had previously. It was still going strong, and then with the new bands like Wet Willie and the Allman Brothers Band moving forward. And then I recruited John Huey right out of college. Buck Williams recommended that we meet, and John's so big, I figured I needed a bodyguard if nothing else. So John came in with vim and vigor and did an awesome job. And of course, is at CAA right in Nashville, and you probably see Buck from time to time. I was talking to Miles Copeland one day, and I said, I need another booker, another agent. And he said, I don't necessarily want to go around recommending my brother, but you should meet my brother. And so I met Ian Copeland. I was on a trip to Los Angeles. He had come from London, England to visit and interview in LA and New York. And I met him, and we hung out one night. And I said, you got to come to Macon and hang out with me. You see what it's like. So I said to Ian, what are they going to let you do in a big agency? He said, maybe in 5 years I can sign a band. I said, I'll give you an opportunity to sign a band in 5 minutes if you know somebody that we should book. So we brought in Squeeze and Gang of Four and 999 and the Police and so many other bands that were different style of music without question. And that was a great time. So we've had, and at Phil's company, he had a young gal who had moved from Philadelphia, and she was working at Capricorn Records or Phil Walden Management, and that was Carol Kensel. And around 1980, I decided to have a new start, no partners, be a little smaller. And I said to Carol Kensel, you got to come. We're going to start right out of my house, and you can be an agent. She said, I can't book bands and sell on the telephone or whatever. I said, I thought I couldn't either, but you can. So she joined me, and we started Empire Agency and moved to the Southern Empire City, Atlanta, Georgia, in early 80s. And we both ended up in Los Angeles around 1984, 85.
That's a hell of a story. I mean, your timing was impeccable because the Southern Rock, when I was raised on, and was huge in Nashville. And no telling how many of your shows I saw back then, because they played like every week at Municipal Auditorium. And whether it was CDB or Skinner or Marshall Tucker Band, Wet Willie, all those. But when that kind of peaked around 1980, here comes this new wave music, and you guys were tuned into that as well. So you really kind of ahead of the curve a little bit.
Well, we tried to be. I was signing some young Atlanta, punk bands too. But around 1983, somebody called me and said, you need to meet a young guy named Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I didn't go see him. I sent somebody. And this somebody was Rick Rick Alter, he came back and said, Alex, this is just made for you. So I put him on a show at a club across the street from the Fox Theater in Atlanta, opening to Greg Allman. And I went out early, waited for him to get from the airport to the venue, and met Chesley and the band, and met Stevie Ray Vaughan. And when we just met, we had a unique connection. But I hadn't seen him play yet, and you know, but he was warm and friendly, and we just got on terrific. Then they did sound check. You got a glimpse, and you just go like, "Oh my God!" And then when he and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, when they hit the stage and did their set, everybody, audience, all the musicians, all the crew, everybody was just wide-eyed, just going like, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable!" And then I had a long run with Stevie Ray Vaughan.
You know, you were
A short, long run. I mean,
yeah.
Stevie died in 1990, and you know, there's just so much more that he was going to do.
Without question. You were part of the infamous decision that really changed the course of music history when when he played on the Bowie tracks, right? And then he was going to do the Serious Moonlight tour, and ultimately opted to do his own thing instead, right?
Well, the album came out when I found Stevie hadn't recorded yet, and he did some work in Jackson Browne loaned in his studio a little bit, and he had some other tracks in it. And with John Hammond, the infamous, famous, unbelievable A&R guy from Columbia Records, who was signed him to Epic at the time, and you know, they didn't know what they had. They printed only 10,000 units. They were gone in a week. So Stevie had a following that was just bubbling under, and nobody really knew how much of a following he had, of course in Texas, but in other places as well. And yes, he was going to go out on that tour after being on the album and playing, and for whatever combination of reasons, decided the idea maybe was to book some shows around the tour. That's not easy, but not that anything is. In any case, I got the call from Chesley and Stevie and said, "We're go to work. We're not going out on this tour." And so Carol and I had to go to work real fast, and Rick and put together the routing and book Stevie. And you know, here's a club act who's on the way to stardom, but when you're not there, you're whatever level you are. And Chesley had one thing: no gate under $1,000. And very quickly that became easy. It wasn't necessarily easy the day one, but day two, things started taking off. And then we came up with other cool and novel ideas, including the Moody Blues tour. That Stevie didn't get as much money on that tour as he would on his independent dates. But again, it was time to have him experience the arena crowd.
Well, anybody that loved good music gravitated to him, and one of the first times I saw him live was at the Grand Ole Opry House with B.B. King the night the shuttle crashed. You remember that one?
I do.
Yeah, and then the first conversation we ever had, of course, I think, was from the funeral home after the crash, when I just started working in LA, and you talked to me about that, and it was a sad day, and I know that was after what had already happened with Otis. That had to be a big blow to you.
Well, I really have enjoyed my association with so many great artists and seeing their styles of leadership, from Duane Allman to Stevie Ray Vaughan, Otis Redding, so many others. Some people are gifted in music, and they also have a gift of being leaders, and in particular, those three had all of those qualities, as well as being good people. Uh, but it's the sad days. You don't forget them, but you have to pick up and look to the future. That goes without saying. But it's whether it's a family life or business life, it's all personal. What we do, I think, what everybody does in the music business is extraordinarily personal.
The last time that I saw him was at the tour with Jeff Beck, Fire and the Fury, and it was the LA show, and everybody in the business was there. I mean, big shows in LA. I think it was the sports arena.
It was a sports arena in Los Angeles in '80. And one of the interesting things about the tour is that you guys in the media, you put out publications, you talk to a lot of people, and I read in several magazines that when we decided to do an arena tour with Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jeff Beck, that it was predictable to fail, and it's not the best reading in the world. Yet we booked it, and we had pretty amazing. We sold out Madison Square Garden, 360 degrees, all 20,000 people, begging Ron Delsner to find a ticket in his pocket. To run it up to the box office. If I had any family tickets, I ran them to the box office. It was just a magical combination and tour, and in both. Pollstar and at the time Performance Magazine, and we won Tour Package of the Year, all kinds of deserved accolades to Stevie Ray Vaughan and to Jeff Beck, and it was an amazing moment. We did in San Francisco. We worked with Bill Graham, and that show in LA was pretty stunning. How many people, musicians of great notoriety came out to say hello, including David Bowie.
Yeah, he was there. I saw Axl Rose back there. I don't think he saw me, but I definitely saw him. But the Fire and the Fury, I think that tour was called. And
right.
I still have that laminate.
We had to figure out all the billing. So some things were done with the name sideways and reverse, and we put out ads. We really worked hard on all the ads. 2 headliners, no opener, don't be late, and that became a theme. We pushed that so that people wouldn't lag in thinking there was an opening act. We wanted to get a full flavor and taste and a full show for both Jeff and for Stevie, alternating closing. Epic Records did some mock-up of an ad once for that tour, and up close it looked like the way the colors were and the art was that it was overlaid art and stuff, that it kind of looked like it was to the advantage of Jeff Beck. But at a distance, the perception changed as you looked at this piece of art, and it suddenly favored Stevie Ray Vaughan. So Stevie's manager at the time, Jeff Beck's manager at the time, was in my office in LA. He came over from England, and we're looking at the artwork at a desk right close, and he approved it. And he walked out of my office, and about 3/4 of the way out of my office, he turned around. I said, uh-oh. He turned around and said, hold that artwork up. And he could tell that at a distance, the way the colors were and the contrast, it favored Stevie. He didn't approve that artwork. I hope I have it somewhere. It's pretty cool. Anyway, we really tried to be fair to each other, and they jammed. They jammed almost every night. Not every night. They did a song at the end.
It was a great show, and I still have that laminate. But again, what tragedy befell him as well, and what didn't you tell me one time that when you were at that show and or what happened exactly when he passed?
You mean in Alpine Valley?
Yeah, at Alpine Valley.
Yeah, I just, for those who were there, it was two fabulous nights, and the last night was pretty incredible with Stevie, being invited out on stage by Eric Clapton, and just quite a moment. And we were going to take some time off, and then had a swing of dates to do later in the late summer, fall in Texas. That, of course, never happened. Had another European thing scheduled, and that never happened. And the shock is always unbelievable when these tragedies happen. I miss Stevie Ray Vaughan every day.
Yeah, and in my opinion, still the greatest of all time. In my opinion, becomes, when you get to a certain level, a matter of taste. When you get up there with Hendrix and Clapton and Stevie Ray. But for my taste, he was the best, and a sweet guy as well.
Stevie would sometimes say, "Keep the faith; it keeps us," and I'm sure he like to believe that he appreciates your comments. So.
Yeah, well, I didn't really intend to spend so much time on the past, but when I get to talking to you, we always go there. Because I love.
But I talk slow. I apologize for that southern accent. Half the people can't understand me anyway. So
I think we speak the same language in a lot of ways. But let's talk about your career on the other side of the equation. Instead of beating up the promoters, you are the promoter, and
we get a little bit. There's a lot of good agents that know how to beat up promoters. I think it's changed a little bit in the sense that agents and managers and promoters recognize the common goals, and certainly you're faced with economic decisions, and we're going to be faced with new economic decisions when this shutdown is over. But yeah, I had a call from Jimmy Nederlander one day in the fall, and went to lunch, and I told Stevie played the Greek, and I knew the family from a long time. I knew the family from when I was in Macon and putting artists at Pine Knob and Meriwether Post and Poplar Creek and so forth. So I knew the family, and never, I was going to say I never went to the Yankee Stadium when I was an agent, but I did with Jimmy Jr. We did 2 nights of Pink Floyd at Yankee Stadium. But anyway, I knew the family. Went to lunch. Jimmy says, "You got to come work for me." And I said, "Well, I'm managing. I'm at ICM. I've been an agent all my life." And he said, "You got to come work for me in Greek theater and our other amphitheaters. Work with my New York team. We got an office at the Pantages building, and he made me an offer that ultimately accepted. And he said, run your management company and do that. You'll know how to take care of business. So do that too. It's okay." So for a moment, I had under my watch was a great team at Nederlander, working for Jimmy Nederlander and his son. Had amphitheaters across the country, and the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. And Stevie Ray Vaughan was taking off, and Greg Allman wasn't doing so bad either. So it didn't last. Stevie's death was critical. And then years later, I moved from working with Nederlander and the Greek to working with the competitive 6,000 seater in Los Angeles at Universal Amphitheater. Oddly, people talk about Universal, and some remember when it was outdoors. I never visited it from Georgia when it was outdoors. That venue was so hot, by the time my bands would say they would work or go west, the summer season at the Universal Amphitheater was already booked up with 6 nights of James Taylor and 7 nights of somebody else. And Jimmy Nederlander took over the Greek Theater to build a competitive spirit in Los Angeles live. And I found, some bands that would work for Jimmy at the Greek. And Jimmy Nederlander, changed the market. But anyway, going back to around 1995, I guess, I was working with Jay Marciano and Larry Vallon over at Universal and telling people that it was the best venue in town.
So you've seen a lot of the competitive marketplace change for sure, but in a world where you have the 2 largest promoters, concert promotion companies that have really ever existed, you found your niche and you're doing a lot of business. So talk about the scope of Nederlander up until March anyway.
Well, we've carved out a different niche in the last few years, and that's one of the things that I think should be appreciated now during the shutdown and going forward. We've worked really hard with a lot of bands, young ones, new ones, older ones who've had superstardom and then settled back down to a different career level. Classic rock, but all kinds of new artists, and we've been working really, really well with artists doing, call it 2,000 to 5,000 capacity rooms mostly. The Grove in Anaheim may be, City National Grove in Anaheim may be a little smaller than that, but there's a real world of bands that need to work, and I think all agents or most agents have some of those clients. And they need to work. They can't afford a year off or 2 years off. They need to work. So for us, we made quite a mark on up and down California, Anaheim, Los Angeles, Thousand Oaks, Paso Robles, California, Vina Robles Amphitheater. My hat today is Vina Robles Amphitheater, and at home we're enjoying some of their wine. And it's an example of the advantages of 3,000 capacity. And a few years back, we started working in San Jose at what had been a dormant venue, the Civic Center, and so we worked with the San Jose Civic, and then also with Team San Jose in the market through the Convention Center. We work with them there. We work with them at the Center for Performing Arts. So. And then moving over to Sacramento, we worked the soccer field, and a couple of years ago we had a pretty amazing, almost $1 million gross with Slayer on that package. So if we do, Jackson Browne in one market, or REO Speedwagon in one market, or we do Slayer in a market, we're keeping busy in the world of
Go ahead and take that, man.
Get rid of that. In the world of work, people backstage, people loading in, loading out, marketing, and the bands themselves, they need to work. So we have from comedy to rock and roll to we've had a pretty remarkable growth in that world, going from not doing that prior to say 2009 to experimenting in San Jose around 2009. Years ago, I had a conversation with Jimmy Nederlander about going to San Francisco or going to San Jose and promoting shows. And Bill Graham owned the market. And I said, Jimmy, if you want to go up there, you got to tell me it's okay to, lose on the first 9 shows. And Jimmy said, I don't know if I want to, give you that leeway to go lose on the first 9 shows. So fast forward many years, 2009, we go into San Jose. I didn't lose on the first 9 shows. I lost on the first 13. But now it's very vibrant. We've done a great job. It's just been a vibrant market for us, and it shows you, it takes a little time sometimes to develop a venue relationship with the fans and so forth. And I think relationship with the fans is something that we're trying to preserve and work through now during this shutdown. It's unbelievable. I mean, March 12th, the Pantages was about to open with Hamilton. March 12th, I was put up on the whiteboard how well we had done through February against the last year. We'd had a great 2019. So I put up on a whiteboard all these numbers, right? And they're still there because we've been home since March 13th. So it's crazy. And the first wave was, we'll be home a month. That seemed like forever. And now, we're headed into May very, very soon.
So you were poised to have a good year then, right?
Well, we were on the way to having a great year. And you think about the news media, talking about the cancellation of the gigantic tours of the megastars. And what we're doing is canceling and moving dates for, a lower level of artists who are entertaining a lot of people, millions of people out to see these artists. 2019 was a great year. And I looked at all the measures. We were looking toward, the dates confirmed, the dates on sale, the dates that we're about to confirm, assuming agents were going to deliver to us. Seriously, we were looking at maybe 15-20% boost for 2020. It was just looking great. Albeit early, but we had a robust schedule planned for Vina Robles Amphitheater, and the dates wouldn't start, of course, till warmer weather, and would start in May, and or late April, and we had on the way to doing 30 dates there. Now we got to be on the way to doing 40 in 2021. That's got to be the new goal.
Unbelievable. So talk about the unraveling of it and when it got real for you, and you started postponing, we'll still call it, shows, and what that process was like. Who do you talk to? Who talks to you? How did that play out?
Well, it's rather fascinating. I don't know, Twilight Zone is one way of putting it, for real. You're sitting in the office and you get word of closure and you go home and you know that you have to pick up, a laptop, an iPad, and take a handful of files with you. And you're sending people home. And we're going to be operating by conference call for a few days. And then we started using Zoom. But the number one concern was, you had to be calm and had to think and had to take safety first. And I took a selfie of me wearing a mask, that afternoon, the next day, on Wednesday or Thursday, I guess on Thursday. And I took a selfie, and you have to wear it as a scarf. But I took a selfie with a mask and sent it to everybody, and they're going, "Wow, I don't have a mask." I said, "Yeah, you do, because you've got a scarf, you've got a handkerchief, you've got masks." And in some cases, if you like to paint at home, you've got masks for that. So, get some work gloves, get some kitchen gloves, get some masks. And I thought a lot of it was the application of common sense. I thought a lot of it was the application of what we were told to do. I think that's one of the things as the states and people open up. None of us like this. It's no fun, and you want to keep some distance because you want to give everyone a sense of comfort. Don't add stress to it's already stress. You got to use stress as a tool. You got to use stress as a motivation, and then you got to find laughter. And sometimes the mask of laughter. My wife and I walk down in the afternoon, and we'll see some people with a scarf. Some people maybe not wear a mask because it's not that many people out. And some have a black mask, and some have a white mask. So if I were more creative, I'd create stories about who they were. I mean, I know video directors do that. They get on. They look at people and go, play games on who people are and what they do because it keeps the creative juices going. And so we have a little fun with that. Whether people look like we're there in the James gang or they're whatever. But you've got to acknowledge people. I think people get they don't want to wave at everybody they pass, but you give a little smile and try to have a good sense of humor. I think that's one of the absolute keys to what we're going through. Try to laugh a little bit.
Well, it blows that facial recognition technology all to hell. The mask,
Yeah.
facial recognition technologies, not playing into it.
It's changing the world in every way. I think about the messages from the governors. Listen, the news media creates headlines, and sometimes they work on sensationalism. But one headline a couple of days ago was the states are going to have a well-coordinated reopening. Well, it's not well coordinated. Everybody views it differently as the numbers hit different states differently. One state is counting in the coronavirus measure almost anybody that was a fatality or called a hospital or went in, and they're not related. I lost a niece last week, not coronavirus, cancer. I had a brother went to the hospital. He went in, he came out. Safest place to be was where he was, except he wasn't on the floor where they're treating the coronavirus. And I think people shouldn't postpone. I think they should go. I think we have to look at the good stories, the survival stories, the recovery stories. Jared Arfa shared his story, and it was interesting to read. And this morning I got a call from an ex-Paragon agency employee who said his wife had tested positive, had coronavirus. She recovered, and she's back at work. And I think we've got to look for the recovery message, and more people recovering than otherwise. And I hate any death from anything is sad and so often, unnecessary. But right now, we do have to pull together. I think as we're in it together, sometimes it doesn't feel that way to people that we're in it together. But I think we have to put on a little bit of a face mask that yes, we're in it together. We'll come out of it together. We'll come out of it strong. That's what I absolutely believe, and I think the story should be around, the working band, and not to sensationalize unemployment, but unemployment is tough. It's stressful. And those who are still working, and most of our people are working, we have to look at how do you get back to business safely? How do you get back to business, and what will it be like? I don't think anybody has the answers right now, but I do know that, listen, there was a pandemic in 1957, and I was driving 57, 58. I was driving a Plymouth Fury, and a friend of mine was driving a Chevrolet Bel Air two-door hardtop with a 283 engine, and we had heavy foots, but the world didn't stop, and there's so many times in the past, but the unknown is the unknown, and you've got to figure on how do you cooperate and how do you look for the positive measures of how to move forward, and the venues can do it. I said to you the other day that if we've adjusted years ago from almost no metal detectors to metal detectors everywhere, and then you go from that to dogs being in venues to smell out dangerous materials, and you go to clear bags to go to a stadium, and you go to other things. We can deal with temperature, we can deal with sanitation, we can deal with sanitizers, we can deal with all of these measures, and on, I think it may have been 60 minutes or so where they were testing temperatures with a drone. There's going to be a lot of things that you see, and hopefully all of them work. And the venue management business, and your company's in it, is resilient, resourceful, and it's always been like, you walk into so many of the arenas today, you can't find a spot of dirt anywhere, and that was before this. So it takes a lot of work to make a spick and span clean venue, top to bottom, everywhere. And the venues can do that now, where fans and bands, can come together and feel safe.
What are the conversations you're having now? Who do you talk to, and what do you talk about? Are you in touch with agents and managers and artists and just staying connected? And what do you talk about? Are you holding dates?
Stay connected. We stay connected with the venues on, listen, we still have, call it 75% of the shows on the books for 2020, but they may all go away. 90% of them may go away. We've already moved, call it 20%, and then there's another, 5% of the shows it just canceled, so they haven't moved, so they're not in that number on my whiteboard, and I'm not there to write on the whiteboard. But if you take those 10 or 12 tours at this level that have canceled officially and not reset a date, they're going to book it. They're going to book next year. And so another 15, 20 shows are looking for dates, still trying to push later and later, November, December, into the 2020, and then looking for alternate dates. So some artists are holding 2, 3 dates, in one year and in the other year. The discussion with the venues is the shared part is we really don't know what the different governments are going to require, but we know we can handle it and we can get back to work. And I believe that the fans will adapt, and we can have, a robust 2021. I don't know what 2020 is going to end up like, but it's going to be a little tough.
We've talked about, look, we all agree that the safety of the fan and the artist, and of course the staff and the people who produce these shows is paramount. And but also, LA is not New York, is not Seattle, is not El Paso or Amarillo. It's really different all over the place. And there's like 2 camps, and there's a lot of bigger artists, especially that are production heavy, don't want to go out and not do their show. But there's people who, like, there's artists that we could name that could play coast to coast from Texas. And venues, a lot of the ones that you work with are kind of in a sweet spot, but they're in a city that's in a totally different situation than Texas. But what are your thoughts on artists that could find these places that have that are nimble, that have flexibility, that could scale down production, pick up a guitar and entertain, and actually present?
I'm glad you asked that. For example, there's the virtual dates. For example, we're doing tonight. You can tune in on Instagram to the City National Grove and see Chris Stills, Stephen Stills' son, and a band perform on what we're calling Grove Grooves, and it's a part of our program for outreach and block party. And the other day we handed out, through a drive-by, we handed out food to over 450 cars, so 1,500, 2,000 families, and so when we do that, and that's a preparation, I think, of giving people some connectivity and some contact. So when we do Grove Grooves or block party, we're going to try to, and we're doing it. It's free, and we're doing it without money. We're doing it with staff that's retained, but it's a way to have connectivity and look forward to the future where more bands can work. I think the other part of your question is something I believe bands and agents learned years and years and years ago, that you don't always do a 45-day tour. You work. And if a band was in Kansas City and they made $5,000 in Kansas City, to go to New York, that would be a long trek. They couldn't really afford to get there, and then opening up a show at a big venue in New York City where somebody's offering them $750 seemed like, well, why do it? That was career building. From that aspect of starting in your hometown at the pizza parlor, right, and playing and reaching out 90 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, 300 miles. This is development of bands. And with so many venues of every size, as the markets open up, there'll be opportunities for, to work short routed tours. And it's not new. In fact, Elvis Presley had a big venue tour for major markets, and then he would pare down and have a secondary market tour. And Colonel Parker did that by design. And so I think that from clubs to theaters to civic centers to small arenas to cut down arenas, and a lot of the arenas like Comerica Center in Dallas, in Frisco, Texas, Dallas, they're doing outreach with, cooking kits and food kits and so forth. We're working on some other markets where we will work with the venue management to do the same thing. But I think anything that the venues now, looking at their inventory of merchandise to give away, to be a center for pickup food, I think they should do it, because it's going to come back in tangible ways, that venues as a home of live music or sports reach out and make a statement that they are in it with everybody, and then slowly go out and work some dates. And
first, again, we all agree that it needs to be safe, but some artists are content to wait it out and postpone, but a lot of it, in a lot of cases, they're better positioned to do that than, say, bus driver A or carpenter B or truck driver or whoever else, and certain artists that make their primary living from touring and forget career building, putting food on the table, right? So if it can safely be done and people, I think, want to go, nobody's going to force anybody to go to a show. In certain markets, if you're going to open up certain businesses, I think do you believe it's time to start slowly introducing shows into the mix where it is a different scenario than the big cities?
Well, I think the small venues and some of the venues that are used to cut it down capacity, I think it'll be easy. I think I do believe when you see uh, Georgia and other states open up, you see Tennessee open up, you see a couple of Midwest states that are going to open up, you see Texas open up. You got opportunities for a band who lives in a region or travel a short distance to join bandmates and become comfortable with using common sense and getting out and doing some work. I think it's very possible, and maybe not just right this minute,
Right.
but from think about it, the time every day goes by so fast, yet we're not even at May 1 yet. So when you think about the time off and the states opening up and experimenting, hopefully people will use a common sense and will be guarded and not get too excited and careless. And the hospital and the science community can work together. I truly believe that it won't be long before some bands can work. I don't know what California is going to do. I don't know what any particular state's going to do, but I think there are some advantages to the smaller venues when people open up.
And I think
manager calls me, says my band can't take a whole year off. That's
right.
serious.
Yeah, and there's a lot of artists in that position, and certainly there's a lot of personnel that support artists in that position. And I mean, I could look out my window or our office and see 60 parked buses. Every one of those buses has a crew attached to it, and everywhere they were supposed to go had a lot of people that should be working. So, I mean, what are some of the ideas people are bringing to you, like drive-in concerts, and or what do you think of that sort of thing?
Well, I saw on the news some of the drive-in concerts, and it's funny, I thought about it. I didn't know if any still existed, but they're opening up some, and for movies, and and I think maybe that is an opportunity for for some bands. You've got a certain amount of new technology and video and how to present. You can do certain things remote. You can do certain things live. Screens. I mean, I remember the day when there were no screens at every venue, and now you find the people looking at the screen and not looking at the stage. So there's just so many things that can be done and outreach. I think there are some streaming that have economic possibilities. I think that's can be explored. Right now, what we're doing for Instagram and streaming and the outreach is all free. Unless they order food, then their local restaurateurs put together a very economical food pack. So it's multifaceted. How we keep connected, how we use common sense and be safe, and how the venues prepare themselves with training, and a lot of training. It's going to be if the manifest for the seats and reserve seat halls is going to be different, then you're going to have to train your ushers, and if everybody starts with you remember they say a smile is contagious. Now maybe what we want to be kind of contagious is wearing a mask. I think that would be an okay thing. I have so many, it's like black, white, that scarf. You just go to the store, be safe. I love it. The stores and the venues are going to be doing the same thing. Have arrows, you know, to up and down, and it's just it's all of these things are more natural to venue owners and venue managers, venue production people than they are to, you know, fans and observers. And I just applaud the past training is going to play right into how to do this successfully.
All of this, when you're talking about training, that's going to cost money, certainly, and capacities will be lower, plus the economic fallout of it, and so many people unemployed. And then you're talking about a schedule that's condensed whenever it starts back. The whole economic equation changes. So I would assume that the deals change as well. And are you talking about somehow the scenarios about how deal structures might change?
I think we're having enough conversations that we could be prepared to do shows when the government allows us at different capacities. I think from Los Angeles all the way up to, you know, Sacramento and San Jose, Paso Robles. I think in Texas, the venues we work in Texas, HEB. Interestingly, when you think about it, if we go to do a show that could do 5,000 people, but you're in an 8,000 seat capacity venue, you've got built-in room to be flexible and adjust. Instead of moving the stage all the way up to minimize the space, maybe you leave the stage further back. Everybody's working on what the roof will be for sanitation and restrooms and crowd control. And I think when people see others with masks on, hopefully they'll adjust. I was a little disappointed at some of the news, but again, no, there's always to believe. But when you see a photo, when you see a camera shot on the beaches, you know, maybe people that look like that cluster are all a family unit, or friends who are, you know, very confident. You know, it's going to be a little bit slow, but I think you don't have to look at this as doomsday, Twilight Zone. I think you look at it as just everything's different. We've adjusted before, we'll adjust again.
So you obviously have a lot of shows on the books, right? That conceivably could.
We're not marketing. We're seeing a lot of goose eggs on ticket sales, but occasionally somebody will just go ahead and buy a pair of tickets. It's pretty cool.
I love the confidence and optimism, right?
Got to be.
What about the cooking shows that you've done? Tell me how that works.
The what?
The cooking show.
Oh, you know, we have a chef at the Grove, for example. So we started with a Zoom cooking class. We started years ago as an outreach to people for special events to have Candy Lombard created what she called a kitchen sink, and it would invite clients because otherwise she's spending money taking a client out one at a time to lunch. So she created kitchen sink. 20, 25 clients come in and get a real cooking class, a lot of preparation, Sir Tom does that, you can pay big dollars. We would invite people and it would be fun, economical. And when I came back to Nederlander and she created that model as an outreach to party planners and special event clients, I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I'm scary in a kitchen, but I participated and it was great. So here we are in this world of shut down, and you can't invite 20 people to the kitchen at the Grove, but you can use Zoom. So we did that first. And then I think April 5th, we did the next one, and we did outreach. And tonight will be Instagram, and Chris Stills is going to play. And so this is a mix of music and a culinary experience. And our chef has been great. So we've done 3 or 4 things. It's all grassroots, but we've done the food pantry drive-by that I mentioned. We've done the kitchen sink. We've done Grove Grooves, block party, and you know, we're not spending a ton of money. We're having local restaurant establishments contribute, and people get an option of picking up a $20 food pack or something, and are feeding a lot of people, and are terrific. So with the tools available, and we'll reach out to a broader. I mean, iHeartRadio has helped. We're reaching out, and started from let's try it, and if we mess up, so what? It'll be funny, you know.
Kind of like this.
Well, you're doing good. I don't know about me. I figure people can't understand me anyway with the Southern accent. So I was looking for something funny to say, and I was talking to Vanessa, and she said, "You're trying to think of something funny. It's funny," and we both just cracked up laughing, you know, because sometimes I go like, I remember an interview, somebody tell me a funny story, and you just look at them and you stare and you can't think of anything funny. And then you sit around with a bunch of guys or friends, you know, and you start telling stories. You got hundreds of them that are just hilarious, and people cracking up, and belly laughs, and make your rib cage sore. So I think part of everything we have to do is just look for a lot of humor as we go day to day through this.
We've had some questions come in. One of them, and you would be uniquely qualified to answer this, but what attributes do you think make a great agent?
A great agent?
Yeah.
A great agent. Well, I mean, I think you got to start with liking people. I think you got to start with loving music, and then you got to start with what are your willingness to learn the craft, any craft. And the agent craft is how many miles is it from New York City to Cleveland, Ohio? And if you don't know that, you're going to make some mistakes, and the band's going to, they're going to tell you, what constitutes a good one-night jump or too far. And then how you negotiate on the phone, more in the old days. But, I think it's important for agents to listen, because if they're going to sell and pick your pocket, they're going to pick your pocket better if they listen rather than just tell you. Now, from a promoter's side, the worst question a promoter can say is, what do you want? And listen, I'm selling my car, and somebody asked me that, their car price just went up. So it's like, you've got to be able to learn the market. I knew an agent one time, we were changing the record business, and he said, well, my band's worth from 4,000 to 12,000 people on any day. And I go, that's a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
I think you've got to study it like you're in economic class too. I mean, it's geography, it's a map, it's cities, it's venues. I had an agent who quit for a while. He came back. He a friend of mine. He was saying, well, why don't you consider such and such a venue in Connecticut? As we were talking, and I said it was torn down 2 years ago. Or the roof caved in from the snow. I mean, things happen. You're not going to go play Universal Amphitheater today because it does not exist. Harry Potter's there. So you've got to stay tuned to what's going on. And I think a lot of times that is the reliance on local promoters, people who live in markets, people who learn markets, who are close. I think that's, still valid. We're proof positive that it's still valid. And I think for an agent, I think some sense of trying to make a fair deal. What's a fair deal? It's in the eye of the beholder, and you've got to make sure your band gets paid. Those are some of the criteria and some of the attributes. Years ago, he used to say, he had a necklace. He said, "It's not the money, It's not the money. It's not the, and you say it's not the money. And then you say, well, it's the money. You know. So an agent has to follow the money. Be sure that the artist gets paid. I once had a agent work for me when he believed that the check was in the mail. I made him pay for it when it didn't show up. It was terrible because the show didn't do well. I'd like to think that all shows would do well. They don't. They do differently. It's a different model every day.
You had a pretty good stash going back in the 70s. Ever any thoughts to, a lot of people are growing facial hair in this downtime. Any thoughts of growing that stash back?
I mean, they're just shaved for you, Ray.
Okay. I appreciate that.
I've always, I'm as comfortable in a suit and tie and a beard and no shaving or baseball cap or fedora. I don't do very well bald though. It's like
not far behind you, man.
When I was a kid, I liked hats, and somebody asked me, why do you always wear a hat? And if I wear one that like a fedora, I said, it keeps the sun off my ears too. I may just have to see what color it is if I grow a beard. It might be similar to yours.
Well, I can live with it. I can live with that. The rock and roll, I'm sorry, the country music.
I had them, soul patches.
Yeah, you can tell the conversation has shifted a little bit when you're talking about facial hair, but I was.
It's funny when you're looking forward to going to walk.
Yeah, highlight of your day. I was at the Country Music Hall of Fame a few years back, and they had a Southern rock exhibit, and I saw an old rider for the Allman Brothers Band, and it had your signature on it. That was pretty cool, but the deals have changed a little bit. Some of the requests then you wouldn't see now, but I think the industry can be pretty flexible and change further if they need to, like who shares some of these costs. And there was a question about the artists participating in some of the costs of increased safety. Do you see anything like that?
Well, listen, artists have a big cost just to go out. And we forget that sometimes. I don't think we forget it, but we don't know what it is. And I do think too, that sometimes artists want to compete on a production level, and they keep growing the production too. So that's a cost. And with some of my experience with being involved in tours, we might go to an arena level and have different set of costs and more trucks, and then cut it back for another segment of the tour. So I think that some adjustments can be made, and you're not going to lose the talent, because that's the artist. That's what they do. They're the best at it. It's unbelievable how good artists are without all the bells and whistles. So and fans know it, artists know it themselves. You get in a competitive world of who has the biggest bus, and I think there's room to pare down on all fronts and work together. We'll see how that plays out, but I think it's a necessity, so it will happen.
Well, I agree.
Fans will be there. I was trying to think earlier of a story. Go ahead and ask whatever you got.
Well, I would agree with you that they're superstar, they're artists for a reason, and they might surprise themselves about how well they could entertain without all that production sometimes. And fans are hungry for any kind of show right now.
Fans are very hungry. They'll be more so.
So you had a lot of shocking kind of events occur across your career, whether it was what happened with Otis Redding or Dwayne Allman, and certainly Stevie Ray Vaughan, not to mention some pretty severe changes from one side of the fence to the other. And different competitive situations all across the board. Is there anything that, does any of that prepare you for what we're experiencing now?
I would like to think that I would like to say, think that yes. I think coming from not a huge family, but family with older brothers, um, and you know, going back to losing a high school, a grammar school mate to polio, a high school mate to a car wreck, a college mate to something, and then the tragic accident taking any young life, and certainly with Otis and Dwayne. I wasn't working with Leonard Skinner when the plane went down, but they were friends, and I'd worked with them for several years, as you know. And then all of a sudden, Stevie Ray Vaughan and the helicopter goes down in August of 1990. It doesn't really prepare you, but maybe you do get a little, you know that life is fragile and that you can move on and you have to move on. And I think with whether it is an economic situation caused by something you can't control, it's disappointment with a business partner and some money disappears or whatever it is. I think life experiences prepare you for tomorrow. I think they just have to. There's something to be said for experience. Somebody said, what's the line? Experience is the best teacher, but it doesn't stop there. Experience is the best teacher, comma, but there may be a better way, and that could be in a book, learning, or somebody trying to teach you or mentor you. So we hope that everybody does not have to learn the hard way. It's much more efficient when you can be helped.
Yeah, I could have just as soon avoided all of this and had somebody tell me about it and been fine. But when you mentioned polio, that was, people don't realize, even myself, that was a pretty devastating thing at the time. And a vaccine, it went away. We don't even talk about it anymore. So the same thing could happen again, I think. And I have a lot of faith in our
Well, I
research.
say I was around for that period. I was young, but I was, and maybe I'll be around for the next 100 years from now. But I remember, and I remember the day that we stood in line and got our vaccination the very first time.
Wow.
The miracle, and it was everybody should take seriously having vaccinations. Listen, I don't give my age away, but I'm just gonna be around a long time. I'll be here.
And you know what? You've been a true gentleman, and you're a hard competitor, but you're fair, and been good to me from when I started out. So we've been going over an hour, and I appreciate your generosity with your time, because we're all so busy right now, right? But is there anything you'd like to leave us with, Alex, about what your best hopes would be for how this might play out?
But I truly hope that everybody I know, everybody they know, all the families get through this safe. I would also say to people, don't be afraid to go to the hospital if your doctor says you need something. I walked in the front door of a hospital, not in the emergency room, and my neighbor said, well, your wife says you're going in to have some blood work or something done, do a test, and put it off. I said, my doctor says, it's going to be fine. Come on. My oldest brother spent 2 nights in the hospital, not coronavirus virus associated. He was safe. I think don't let use stress as a motivator, and don't let fear take over. I think if you pay attention to good advice, and some of it may not be on the news media. But call your professionals, call a friend, share stories. Don't be afraid. And I don't say, like fear is normal. And you wake up in the morning, competitively or something in the world, or you can let fear drive you absolutely crazy. But there's no reason to do so. You just got to have some faith, and you've got to figure out ways to laugh, and you've got to figure out ways to remain focused. And I think, like focus is like, what does that mean? That means paying attention. That means putting the time in for details. And if you do that, some project that you've got, and if you're moving dates, then you got to move it again. That's the good news, that we can do that we have the time, and that we're willing, and that 2 parties or 3 parties are willing to, the venue, the artist, agent, manager, promoter, can move these dates. I think finding ways to look at all of this as an experience and not let fear and stress take over. Use stress as a motivating tool. You're going to get through it. You're going to have a good day. You're going to have an even better tomorrow. You just got to keep telling yourself that. Look in the mirror and be happy that you're can do it. I'll tell you a funny story. I was trying to figure out something funny, and fans are resilient. Fans are just unbelievable. And what we do about music, every band has their fans. And way back when, the Allman Brothers were in New York, a couple of nights of sold out shows at Madison Square Garden. And in those days, we could afford, and we did use an abundance of limousines. So, Butch, Greg, Dickie, Jama, which car am I going to ride in? Am I riding with Dickie, or, an abundance of limousines. So you're on the way to Madison Square Garden, and these guys have their crazy moments. And one very athletic member of the band decided he wanted to get in another limousine and ride with them for a little while, and said, roll the windows down. And while we're moving, you don't move very fast driving in Manhattan, but while we're moving, he went from one car to the next, and it reminded me of some of these ads that, remarkable athletic abilities. And so anyway, we go into the bowels of the Madison Square Garden, one limo right after another. Everybody getting out and saying, well, who's getting out of the cars, where they are, going to their appointed places, and you'll find out where production office is, and dressing rooms, and so forth. And you're looking around because you're just getting out of the car, and you look around and you go, nobody's getting out of that last car. And you go, somebody, who's in that one, So you go over, send somebody over to check that last limousine. There's a bunch of kids. And they knew where the band was, and they hired a limousine, perfect match, and followed us, got all the way into the backstage area of Madison Square Garden. And we appreciated their resourcefulness and gave them free tickets. So anyway.
That's great. I love it. Well,
but fans today, fans tomorrow, there'll be those who are trying to get in free, those who'll pay, those that will, sit on the bank, sit in a boat near a venue where they can hear it. Just everything about music is fantastic. It's just great. It's inspirational.
Well, it's been a good ride and a good interview. So, Alex, I appreciate your time, and I know we both hope that we're back to work soon. And anybody who watched this, be well, be safe, and
I want you to come out and join us at some shows. Go to Vina Robles, go to San Jose, come to LA. We'll treat you well, and you know, we don't have to just wait for the conference. Let's join hands or elbows.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for watching. Have a good one. Be well. Adios.